Welcome to the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kylie Burton. If you have been told that your blood work is normal, yet you feel awful, well, this is the place for you, because whether you have a diagnosis or not, I'm going to teach you how to turn those normal labs into real answers, healing, and hope. So grab your blood work. Come join me. Here we go.
No matter what your scenario is, your labs are your labs. They are your blood work. Get them. Get possession of them, whether it's a patient portal, whether you make your doctor print off a copy and give them to you, even send them in an email. Get your labs. They are your labs. And as you're about to learn, you're going to learn more in the next 20 minutes about your labs than you ever have before. And once you know this stuff, now you can stop wasting time on Google. Now it's like, I'm not crazy. There is a reason why I would rather buy takeout than make dinner. I just don't have the energy for it. Now, the one we're going to talk about today is called the CBC with differential. It is the basic standard blood test we all have. We're going to talk about 5 key markers inside that CBC. Now, you're going to see the CBC, and the very top of it is going to be this white blood cell count. Okay? That white blood cell count is going to tell us whether or not we have infections. Now, infections wreak havoc on every cell, every organ, every gland, every system of the body. So if you're one of those people that's like, I just feel like a mess, and yet nobody can tell me what's wrong with me. Well, you're in the right place, because when you fight these things, you're going to have symptoms that don't fit underneath an umbrella. And when you don't fit underneath an umbrella, you don't get a diagnosis. Therefore, they don't know what to do with you. So right off the bat, white blood cell count, the standard lab range is, failing everybody. What we want to pay attention to is this range. It's the normal lab range condensed into the smaller version, 5 to 8. But say you have a marker that says it's 5.8. Now, just because it's 5.8 within that range doesn't mean that the markers below it, which we're going to go into really detailed discussion about, are going to come out clean. Always, always, always double check these additional markers. That one might be fine, one lab test. Another lab test, it's like 9.9. And 10 years back, you look at your labs and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm 3.2. Or so many times people on social media will say, I've always had low white blood cell count, and yet my doctor just washes it away like, oh, that's just your normal. Because these markers are going to change your life. They're called neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. These are going to be at the very bottom of the CBC. So the top marker is white blood cell count. You're going to bypass like the next 7, 8 markers, and you're going to see these 5 markers. If you don't see them, that's a possibility too. If they're not there, your doctor only took a CBC, not a CBC with diff. The differential portion are these 5 markers. So if it's there or not, it's okay. You know what to ask for in the future if you don't have it. Make sure it's a CBC with differential. Or if you don't want to go through your primary care doctor, no matter where you are in the world, you can order these lab tests online, and they will ship the kit to your house. And then it's just a finger prick to get the blood. Neutrophils. You want to see these guys less than 60%. Now, there's 2 versions of this on some labs. Sometimes you're only going to get the absolute value, but most of the time you're going to get the percentages. Just pay attention to the percentages. So you want to see it less than 60%. Say it's at 68%. Now you want to be concerned about a low-grade bacterial infection. What does this look like? It looks like chronic diarrhea, chronic constipation, joint pains. Maybe you've been told you have rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. It can look like a lot of things, but those are the big ones. Digestive issues, GI complaints, joint pain, something like fibromyalgia, that's the neutrophils. If it's less than 60%, that's most likely a good thing. It's a bad thing. We'll get to that when it is in a minute. Now, lymphocytes, you want to see lymphocytes less than 30%. If it's above 30%, say it's 42%, you're going to think virus, okay? Lymphocytes, their primary job is to fight viruses. This isn't something that's going to come up positive on a test. Or even if it's Epstein-Barr virus, COVID, I don't care what the name of it is. There's thousands of viruses out there. Most of them are good guys. Now, the monocytes, that one can be fun because you want to see it less than 7%. Say it's 13. That's really high. 12, 13, 14 is really high. Now, you're also fighting a virus, or it's another way to determine if you're fighting a virus. But at that level, it easily could be Epstein-Barr virus, a positive test. Viruses are just, they're there. We fight them all the time. They're nothing. If your body's given the right tools, it can do its job. Okay, that's monocytes. Anything less than 12%, it's a low-grade virus. No worry, don't need to test for the Epstein-Barr because it won't come back positive. It might be there, but it's not active enough to elicit a positive test result. Eosinophils. If eosinophils are over, let's see here, do my math right, 3%, or basophils are over 1%, now we're looking at something like parasites. However, eosinophils can also be food allergies. Usually, though, by the time people are figuring this out and they get to me, they eliminated every food they could possibly eliminate, and they still feel like crap. So now we have to go in under parasites. So say your eosinophil marker is 4.8, basophil marker is like 0.2. Look at this marker and say, am I eating any food that my body is hating? Maybe I need to get rid of it for a certain time, do some healing, and then it can handle it again. So when it comes to food, I would recommend eliminating 4 food groups for 21 days. Just 21 days, that's it. Why? Because I like bread. When I go to Texas Roadhouse, I'm going to eat the rolls. So telling me to go gluten-free for the rest of my life, screw it. I will never tell you guys to go gluten-free for the rest of your life either. So eliminate gluten, dairy, soy, and refined sugar for 21 days. That time period is enough to reset your body and literally lower inflammation levels. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. Now remember, this is 60, 30, 7, 3, and 1. Okay? All of these are going to add up to 100%. Now you do the math, it's going to be 101, but with the decimal points, when you guys get your labs, they will always add up to 100%. So I always get questions. Well, what if mine's low? Say my lymphocyte count is, 14. I get this on social media all the time. I don't really care about the low because that means something else is really high. That would probably mean, you're up here at 78 and maybe this is 3. If something's low, something else has to adjust to make everything always, always, always equal 100%. So pay attention to the high, guys. That's where your answers are going to come. Okay. Now here's the very important pattern. Neutrophils, we want to see at around 60% or less. Lymphocytes, we want to see around 30% or less. This is a 2-to-1 ratio, right? 60-30, 2-to-1 ratio. That's a good thing. What happens if we start to see this? Where the lab ranges start to meet in the middle. And we see this 1-to-1 ratio. The closer you approach the 1-to-1 ratio, the more you're fighting an autoimmune flare. I know there's several people here on this call who are fighting Hashimoto's. I guarantee everybody knows somebody who's fighting autoimmune. Now remember, focus on what's high. So this is 42 is high. So therefore we know that the autoimmune was being caused by a virus. The virus then got triggered, became more active than normal. Sometimes that's pregnancy. Sometimes that's labor and delivery. I mean, how many of us know some moms who are like, I was fine until I had my third kid. Then all of a sudden my health tanked. It was the trigger that caused the downflow effect of that. So anytime you see that 1-to-1 ratio, now you got to focus on the immune system. And you got to say, why is my immune system fighting so hard? What is it fighting? Chances are that virus, once you remove the triggers, combat the virus, possibly even the bacteria and the viral infections, because a lot of the times it's all three together, then you can go in and give the immune system things like high dose vitamin D to give the ingredients it needs to do its job. The stuff is powerful. These labs have the answers that you need right inside them. Now, as far as the pattern, what if you see something like 48 and 40? Is that close enough? Well, I would say so, especially if you have symptoms that nobody can figure out. If you have any type of autoimmune whatsoever. What if it's 50-30? I would say on that one, unless you're finding autoimmune symptoms specifically, focus more on, I would assume with those numbers, I would assume the monocytes are like 9 or 10. Because again, everything has to add up to 100. So something else is going to be elevated if we're dealing with low numbers. And in that case, the monocytes would signal virus. And sometimes you'll see monocytes high, but the lymphocytes are fine. So focus on all of the numbers.
Hey, if you're new here, welcome aboard. If you're coming back, welcome back. I'm coming back as well. In fact, we're going to have new episodes every Wednesday right here on the Beyond the Diagnosis podcast. If you love what you just listened to and love what you've been listening to, I would be honored to have you leave a review. Leave it on the place where you listen to your podcast, so that way more people can find this podcast and get answers from their blood work as well. I'm Dr. Kylie, and I'll see you next week.